Source Nation, join us now for Family Mix Mondays with licensed professional counselor Jaketra Bryant. Tune in as Jaketra shows the different dynamics that make up family. Whether you represent the nuclear family, single parent, extended, grandparent, or blended family, Jaketra has tips and advice designed to strengthen your family structure. Source Nation, here is your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Good evening, Source Nation. I am your host, Jaketra Bryant, and I want to welcome you to Family Mix Mondays, which is a show where I'll be discussing breaking the cycles and building back up our families. Discussions from intentional parenting, how to stop being a guest in your family, communication, and many more topics to mix in. So join me each Monday right here. Before I jump in and get started, I want to stop to thank our sponsors, and they are WGLRO.com, Scott Cares Foundation, Urban Grandstand Digital, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Renovations, and New Covenant of Praise Worship Center. Tonight we have a very special guest. I mixed it up a little bit, and I actually have a teen in the studio tonight with me, Kayla Cullins. Kayla Cullins will be discussing the series of Bridging the Gap Between Parent and Teen. So such an awesome conversation. I'm looking forward to it with Kayla as she gives us a perspective from the teen side with how to bridge this gap between our parents and our teenagers. So after the break, Kayla Cullins will be in the studio with me to discuss bridging the gap between our parents and our teenagers. So stay tuned.
Source Nation, stay tuned. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Source Radio Network is just one of the many platforms that is used to fulfill dreams of our listeners and create a purpose that will impact the lives of our communities, cities, and the world. It is often said that great things will happen when a group of driven people work together to accomplish one goal. We're giving people the opportunity to have a voice, translate words that haven't been heard, and paint pictures that no one has seen. Source Radio Network is fueling your life's purpose. How can you listen? www.blogtalkradio.com/Source Radio.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Welcome back, Source Nation. Again, I am your host, Jaketra Bryant, and you're listening to Family Mix Mondays. We are continuing our series of Bridging the Gap Between Parents and Teens. And as stated before the break, Kayla Cullins, one of our first teenage guests, will be in the studio tonight. So before she comes in, I want to stop and tell you a little bit about Miss Kayla. So the term, "this girl is on fire," is an understatement when describing this young lady, 13-year-old Kayla Cullins. So Kayla Cullins was born in North Carolina, the second of 4 children to Quentin and Maya Cullins. She is currently receiving her education as a Cobb County, Georgia middle school student on the A honor roll. Kayla describes herself as self-motivated and very spirited person who is not afraid to be the voice the youth of her generation need. Kayla is most definitely ahead of her time as it pertains to knowing what she wants and has no problem placing one foot in front of the other to obtain her goals. From birth, it was known that Kayla was destined for greatness. As a younger child, she won first place in a pageant held at her church, earning her title of Little Miss New Birth Sounds of Thunder. There is so much more in store for Kayla, and no doubt she will take this world by storm and conquer all that she sets her mind to do. This young lady is most definitely someone you want as a part of your team, and I'm so excited about having her in the studio tonight. And if her name sounds familiar, Maya Cullins, her mom, was actually in the studio with us last week discussing and kicking off the series of Bridging the Gap. So I want to welcome Kayla into the studio with me. Hello, Kayla, and welcome to Family Mix Mondays. Thank you so much for being on the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So why don't you go ahead and tell Source Nation a little bit more about you and what you do?
I am an inspiring model. I am a life coach. I help with opportunities with different children to go out in the community for speaking engagements. At 13, I am very involved inside of my church. I go to hospitals. I do things in the community to help people my age with any life problems that they're having, and I just do a lot around my age group.
Good. So glad. So you sound like a perfect fit for tonight's series. And so I'll just kind of give you a little bit about what the series is about. So this series is about bridging the gap between our parents and our teens. And so you sound like a great fit for tonight to talk about how to bridge the gap between our teenagers and our parents. And so tonight we're going to be listening to you tell Source Nation about what's missing with that communication and that solid relationship from our teenagers to with our parents. So before we jump right into that, Source Nation, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Family Mix Mondays, and I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant. And tonight my special guest is Miss Kayla Cullins, and we are discussing bridging the gap between our parents and our teenagers. And so if you would like to call in, the phone lines are open, and the number to dial in is 619-924-0933. That's 619-924-0933, and press option 1. So, Ms. Kayla, we're going to jump right in. Again, our topic is about just bridging this gap between our parents and our teens. And so we really, really want to help find out what is that missing piece and why is it so difficult for this relationship to happen. And so why do you think it's hard for teens to talk with their parents about just everyday issues?
Well, me personally, I think it's hard for teens to talk to their parents about their daily issues is because when you talk to your parents, you have to have that solid foundation. You have to have the trust. You have to have understanding. You have to have an open ear. You have to feel comfortable. You have to have that connection. So when a teen decides to come to their parent and talk to them about their daily issues, they might not know how to take their parent or how their parent is going to respond.
That's a really good point. I have to watch it. So I've mentioned on the show before, I have a little 9-year-old. And so I have to watch, sometimes he's asking, well, Mom, why can't I go, just now, he's like, why can't I go outside to play? And so it was a bunch of teenagers that looked like they're about to smoke. So I'm like, because, you just can't. And so I had to even watch my response because I wanted him to feel comfortable enough to even come back and want to know what's going on and if something was safe and to really talk to me about it. So that's a really good point. You have to really, about the response with it. It's a really good point. So what are some common pressures that teens face that they wish they could talk to their parents about?
That's a good question, honestly. I think the most common pressures that teens actually go through and their pressures are judgment, acceptance, having the communication in the open space to let somebody in, and self-confidence. I think peer pressure also gets in the way with sex, drugs, gang affiliation, alcohol, just to name a few. A lot of people are influenced by their friends or the social media or what's on the internet and what other people are doing.
I agree. I'm actually doing a speaking event on social media, so that is a big one. So do you think with that social media piece, I'll stay on that some, do you think that influences teens to not talk to their parents? What do you think it is about that piece of Snapchats and Kik and all the latest things is keeping them from really understanding what it is to talk to their parents?
I think popularity plays a big part in that. And fitting in and trying to be that rebel and that piece that sticks out and you want everybody to be like you're the bad guy. They want to follow you. But if you think about it, if you look at social media, most girls want to be like Nicki Minaj, have the big butt, or they get easily influenced by the things that they see on social media as they're scrolling down their Instagram feed, their Facebook feed, their Twitter. They get easily influenced by things because it's there, and this is the world and society that we live in.
I agree. We are definitely, unfortunately, technology driven, and it's not really necessarily in the most positive way. And sure, we can text somebody faster than we can pick up the phone. Or sure, we can maybe send this email or send a DM, direct message, for those who are listening and may not know, faster than we can actually have a conversation and walk over someone's house. But what it does, it breaks the communication between us and our families and friends.
And I think those things with social media, like on Snapchat, you can see a message and it be deleted, and people could send nudes, or they could have people exposing them, and their parents would never know about it, because once you send it, it disappears after a couple hours. So it leads to depression, suicide. It leads to so many mental things, outbursts, and everything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wanted to go back to that since you said that, because that is something that can be on there. So do you think it is difficult to come to your parents to talk about, hey, maybe mom, someone put a nude picture up, or someone's like spreading rumors around and now they're bullying? Do you think teens are having a hard time coming to their parents to talk about those things that actually go down in a DM? We're on Snapchat.
Well, I think it depends on your relationship with your family and your parents, because some teenagers I know that are at my school, their excuse of them using drugs and doing things on social media is because they were born into it, because their parents do it, or their mom does it, or their dad does it, or people around them do it. So they feel that it's okay to do it. So it's kind of hard for them to stop, because they're like, I'm born into this. This is basically my life. If I'm going to change it, I have to change it, and I have to show somebody else how to change it, and take my story of me changing and help somebody change before they get to the point where they're like me.
Yeah, really, really good point. I love that. Source Nation, if you are just tuning in, you are listening to Miss Kayla Cullins, and we are discussing our series of bridging the gap between our parents and our teens. Something that is missed due to some of the things that Kayla has brought up is like social media and not feeling comfortable, other factors that are going into play. So if you would like to ask Kayla a question or myself a question, the phone lines are open, and the number to dial in is 619-924-0933 and press option 1. So, Kayla, I know you have an awesome relationship with your mom. We had her on last week, and so it was such a great conversation that we had. And so do you think it's easier to talk with your mom because she's a woman, or is it easier to talk with your dad?
Me personally, I think it's easier to talk to my mom, because as a young woman, she has probably experienced most of my problems that I'm going through now, because she's been a teenager before. So when I talk to her, I feel that my mom is more lenient and she's more open-minded about things. Even though she's still going to tell me what she want to say, she's not going to tell me what I want to hear. And I feel more comfortable talking to her because she's a strong-minded woman, and I feel if she was put in the same situation, she would handle it the way she's telling me to handle it.
Good point. I think like one of the things I wanted to pick up on is that you said like being like transparent, and she's been through the same things, and so that's what that is. That's transparency. So transparency really usually helps the person to not feel judged, and so that's what it sounds like also that made it better, or easier rather, to talk with a same-sex person, is because like some of the similar issues, whether it was body image or something like that, it made it really easy to.
Yes.
So what did your mom do that helped make your relationship as strong as it is today?
Well, as a little girl, I really had nobody to look up to except my mom, because I have no older sisters, or I have nobody to look up to that is another woman. When she did things out in the community, and I sat and I watched the things that she did, and I was inspired by things she did, I could see that each woman that she worked with, she never led them wrong, and she's never led them wondering why certain things happened. She was always there for me, and she never led them off on the wrong foot. She always gave them a lesson at the end of whatever she did with them.
I like that. So sounds like there's a part in it your mom plays. And I know also that relationships are two-way. So with this series, there's something that we are missing. We're missing definitely that there's a portion that our parents must do. So the missing link is that our teens must also do something to build this relationship. And so I wanted to know, what do you think your role is with building a relationship with your mom or dad to actually make sure that that communication is there?
My role personally, I think I have to be open-minded, because some teenagers these days, we get closed-minded and we just think everything we say or we do is right, and we don't like to look at other people's perspectives. So when I'm building a relationship with either one of my parents, I have to be open-minded to their personal point of view and where they're coming from, because if I don't, I'm just going to be stuck in a world where I feel that nobody is going to help me. I feel when I'm one-minded, where I just think everything goes my way and I think I'm always right, it will lead you in a really dark place, because you think nobody could say anything to you. You feel that everything you do and say is right.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I was going to ask if you can elaborate more with maybe what some teens might be missing. And so I know that it took a two-part. Your mom was able to come to you, be transparent. And so what about the teenagers? Do you think there's a level of peer pressure or feeling that they can relate more to their peers and their parents that's actually causing them not to really come to their parents to talk about things?
Yes, I do. Because when you're a teenager, you have people around you that are the same age, and they are going through the same thing you're going through around the same time. So when you're talking to your parents, it feels like you may feel that they won't understand you. They'll judge you, and they'll just hop on your back and be like, no, this is not right, this is wrong. And you feel like you have no space to talk to them. When you have your friends or people around you and your surroundings that are people that are your age, you can actually talk to them. And if they're going through the same thing you're going through, y'all can relate on some things and figure out a way to come up with a solution where you could solve the problem, whatever problem you're having.
I remember when I was a teenager and I didn't have the best relationship with my mom or my dad. And it wasn't that I had anything against them. I just remember feeling the other people that were in a band or a track team or basketball teams, I played sports and stuff, I felt like they knew me better. And even though, like, now that I look back at it, neither one of those parties actually knew me because I was still in the midst of exploring myself, but there was still more of a connection that I had for my friends, but I feeling like they weren't going to judge me. And it made me do more note writing and talking to friends more and hiding and sneaking than it was to open the door up to allow my mom to even tell me what was going on in my body, tell me about sexuality or anything like that, because I just felt, well, what does she know? She's old and she's not in school with me with this stuff.
Yeah, you led me straight to my next point. So when you're a teenager, you might not have that parent figure in your life. You might not have anybody to go to. So you have to go find that teacher you can trust. You have to go find that person, that mentor you can trust, that family member, that friend, that cousin, that aunt. You have to find somebody that you can trust and you can talk to, because if you don't have that parent in your life, then there's nobody to go to. So when you have to go to your friends, it might be something else, because they might say something that it sounds okay to them and they think it's okay to do, but you might not feel that way too. And they might lead you in the wrong direction.
Yep. This wasn't even like one of my questions, but it just probably brought me back to a point. What's some of the worst advice that you've heard some teens give another teen when it came to something that you know they should have probably went to their parents or a teacher or somebody older about?
The worst advice I personally have heard is about sex. At my school, there's a lot of fast girls running around doing things that they probably shouldn't do. And they definitely don't talk to their parents about these things, because if their parents know they're doing these things, they know that they're going to hear it from their parents. And the conversation was, one girl was going and having sex with guys and getting paid for it. And one girl needed money, and she was like, well, what if I don't feel comfortable with it? And it was like, well, you'll get used to it. That's not okay to me. I don't feel that it's okay that you have to go at a young age, only in middle school or in high school. You have to go at a young age in order to make money. You think you have to sell your body. So, like I said, you have to be careful who you go to, because that girl felt that it was okay, so she was trying to lead the other girl into doing the same thing she was doing. And that's not the best choice, personally, to me, to go and have sex to have money.
No, my goodness, no. That can lead to so many, oh my goodness, so much repercussions and consequences just with that. That is very, very sad. But you know what? I'm sure that is unfortunately just one story or one scenario. There are thousands out there where people literally are, like seeking advice from other teens. And not to say that a teen can't be wise, because you have definitely proven that you are a person that has taken this stand to rise above all, to say, you know what, I don't have to go down this path. I can stand on my own road and shine. So clearly there are teens out there who got some sense. And so I definitely commend you for that, because there are lots of consequences that are even associated with this, like mama's boy, or you just do everything what your parents say. And so people literally get consequences for having this close relationship with family members, or being able to want to go talk to their parents about something first.
I agree.
So after you've created this open relationship with your mom, what has been some of the benefits of it?
Our bond. Our bond has been one of the best benefits. When I talk to my mom now, and I am with my mom and I have conversations with her and expressing myself and my feelings, I feel that what I say to her, I feel that it's safe. I feel when I come to her and I can sit down and I can open my heart up to her, I can cry, I can do anything, because I know that my mom's going to be the open ear, she's going to be the shoulder I can cry on. And when I'm expressing myself, I feel that our communication skills have gotten even better, because I used to not want to come to my parents about things because I was scared what they were going to feel about it or what they were going to say to me. But now that I can come to my mom, I can sit here and talk to her in her face, and she gives me back information and advice that I'm in need for the future. And she tells me things that people have told her, that her grandmother has told her, and things like that, and it's really stuck with her through her life. So I take that advice, and it sticks with me through the rest of my life.
I think that's really, really awesome. And so I think sometimes when we are looking at, we just want you to talk, and our parents just know they're just in our business, or how can they really know what we're going through when the age gap is 20 years or 17 years or 30 years. And so I think sometimes we forget to look at the benefits of it, and we more so focus on those consequences. And well, actually, I don't think anybody's focusing on either area.
She never led me wrong. She always just gave me that boost of confidence, and she's always gave me that push, that go, to make me want to be a go-getter and do everything in my power, because nothing's impossible. So she's always gave me that extra go, like, you can do it. She gave me that confidence where she was like, Kayla, if I can do this, I know you can do it and be even better at it.
Right. So it has some positive things behind it. And I know it comes off as, we're fussing. Like I said, I'm a parent of a 9-year-old. My son has not even reached those tween, as they say, years. But I was a teenager myself. And then so when I parent, I decided that I was going to switch my parenting around, take a couple of things of what I knew from the developmental stage and a couple of things that I felt like were really great foundations from our home and our neighborhood. And then I had to also consider the technology that my son was going to be exposed to. And so it doesn't really work as well with because I said so anymore, or because I'm your mom, I'm your dad.
Because he's curious. He wants to know why. Like, why can't I do it? Why?
Right.
What's wrong?
Right. Half of his stuff is why. And so I think so looking at those consequences, what do you think would be some consequences? So I know we talked about some benefits. And so you have been reaping the benefits of it, which has been a really awesome thing. And I'm sure your future plays a role in it. But for some of your teen friends or just some of your peers, what do you think the consequences are, or things they're missing out because they are not building this relationship with their parents so they can actually feel comfortable talking about things?
I think misguidance. I think it leads to destruction, because if you don't have that guidance, I feel either way, you could not have that guidance and still go and be successful. But I feel if you don't have that guidance, then that extra person that you can actually listen to, it takes longer than you think.
I think so too. I agree. And so I think sometimes we, for whatever reason, again, just think that we got this. And it's not that people are trying to lead you astray. It really is kind of, hey, I've been there. I know where that road is going to go. And so I always tell people you can either come out with some scratches, a couple of bruises, or a broken bone. And so what I mean by that is, based on what journey you decide to take, a nice little scratch would do just fine. Or you get some bruises or a broken bone because you learned the hard way and you fell a whole bunch of times.
Yes, sir. That's good advice. I mean, I'll use that in the future.
Yeah. I use that a lot. And mostly everybody be like, I'll take the scratch.
Yes.
So I'll take some scratches too. So I never asked you about building that relationship with your dad. I just realized that because there are people who may be in a single parent home who may be a young lady being raised by a father and they want to open that relationship. So what do you think you did to help build that connection between you and your dad?
Well, me and my dad also have a strong relationship. He's very blunt in what he says. He tells me how to be a lady. He tells me how I'm supposed to keep myself up, how I'm supposed to carry myself as a woman, as a young woman. And I see it from his perspective since he's a man. So it's different from when I'm talking to my mom and my dad. So when I'm building the relationship with my parents, I also have to still keep that open mind.
Mhm. And so, yeah, I wanted to make sure we touched base on that because, again, I thought about it. I was like, oh, man, like myself, I'm raising a young boy and I'm a single parent. And so I'm very, very comfortable having open dialogue with him. But as he gets older, he's going to begin comparing homes and he's going to be looking for that same sex person who he feels has gone a very similar journey. So it sounds like you really had to be intentional with it. Like you really had to work on making sure that, hey, I'm listening to my dad because he has great advice too. He has good points from his perspective as well. So you have other siblings, right?
Yes.
How is that? Because your parents have set up this model with keeping this relationship opening, letting y'all all work together to really rebuild the community, lift up girls and lift up your peers. Do you think that's helped the relationship that you have with your siblings also?
Yes, I think it has because when I talk to my siblings, we're more open with each other. We talk about the weirdest stuff ever that nobody will ever think we'll talk about. And sometimes it make us laugh. We're more comfortable with each other.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing that's helped. So that sounds like that's also some of the benefits that we can let our Source Nation family know that if you do have siblings, now you're comfortable talking to them about things. And so in turn, these are the same peers, just like that young lady you gave with that scenario, these are the same peers that will go and give advice to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see your siblings doing similar things that you do where y'all give advice to your peers and kind of not going with the peers, really just standing on your own?
Yes. Unfortunately, I am the only girl. And because I have an older brother, I get the benefit of having a head up where I can see what he goes through. And if he learns from his lessons, how I can learn from the same things, not go through those same mistakes as I get older.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
And I can see how the boys do girls. I mean, it comes to both ways.
Mhm. So, Kayla, I wanted your mom to chime in with some things about, like, some of these benefits with building this relationship and what she has seen that's been so great with it. Is your mom near you?
Yes.
Chime in some. Hi, Maya. So, Source Nation, I know you remember Miss Maya. So we had an awesome conversation last week. And so I wanted them both on so that they can really, really talk about this bond that has now been created, that both intentionally had a role in making sure that it happened. So, Maya, what's been some of your benefits of just building this relationship with your children?
I think the benefit is to be able to be open with my children, my young lady and my 3 little men. Well, they're growing, but I think the benefit is being able to be open, having my husband to give his perspective and me give mine. So I'm a female. I think what Kayla was trying to say, the benefit of her being like the only girl, she has the ability to interact with her brothers and see how they act towards her, the things that they deal with, and also how they handle, especially her older brother that's 17, how he handles females. So she gets to see the good and the bad. So I think the benefit is that just basically being open with my children and letting them know that I am here to help you, to guide you, because I always tell them they have to make wise decisions. They're not always perfect. They're going to make mistakes. But the best thing is that they have 2 parents that can be an enforcer. And, you know, I don't take away from anyone that is in growing up in a single parent home, because my husband did. and he turned out perfectly fine. But I think the benefit is when you do have a two-parent home, and if you don't have someone else involved in that child's life, whether it's a mentor or with someone that's close to you to be able to assist, to be that extra individual, that I guess extra person, I would say, that you can bounce off from, meaning that my daughter is comfortable with coming to me about certain things, and she's comfortable going to her dad about certain things. So that is the ultimate benefit, because it's always open door policy. No matter if she comes to me or him, the answer is going to be, yes, no, maybe so, or give a suggestion on what we feel and what we think, and then allow them to make the best decisions that they make based off of what we instilled in them.
I think that's really good. I love it. It's like I was telling Kayla that, I have a 9-year-old, so I have not quite reached those teen years, but I know the pressure is there, and the pressure is there with social media. So what do y'all think about, and it's both of y'all, and so in order for something like this to even be successful and for relationship to be as open and safe and solid as it is, I know boundaries have to be set. And so what kind of boundaries did you set to make sure that this relationship can stand? Like, example, for me, we started no cell phones. Well, I'm the only one to have a cell phone, but I can't get on my cell phone and start strolling while I'm sitting at the dinner table with my son. So did y'all have to implement some type of boundaries?
Yes. Well, we have boundaries. First and foremost, I think the foundation was laid with Kayla understanding that I'm your mother first and not your friend.
Yes.
So knowing the difference between that, a lot of times I think that's a big thing for us, because depending on how they perceive an individual, whether it's mother, brother, teacher, whoever that person is that's in that child's life, they have to understand their role and what it is. So I tell Kayla, because she's, getting older and she's a teen, the boundary that I set, that I'm your mother first, so that she won't misunderstand me to be her friend and think that she could just do anything that she wants and lose the respect that she has for me as her mother. Then secondly, I make sure that my expectations, and Kayla, you can tell me if you agree or not, but I make sure that my expectations are clear for my children. We have, house meetings. We talk about what we see is going on that's good, that's bad, that we need to change, areas of improvement. If they get lazy, they go to the dinner table and they are on their phone, or they decide they're going to wake up and not clean up their room. So we have meetings. We actually have meetings and we talk about it as a family and put things in place that need to change so that they can be held accountable for what it is that they do. And I don't know if I mentioned before, and Kayla, you can tell me as well, but I always encourage them, is not what's going on around you or what's happening, it's your response. And your response is the biggest thing. So if the problem is we need to talk more, then when you come into my presence, your response shouldn't be, well, hold on, Mama, let me finish texting. Hold on, Mama, let me finish playing this game. Don't take the little things in life for granted. Allow that time to be spent with your parents, be spent with your siblings and your, people around you that love on you, that love you, because tomorrow is not promised. So I always instill in them is not just yes, no, and let me give you advice. Take that simple thing, that moment that you have to even conversate with me or your father, and take advantage of it.
Kayla, did you want to chime in?
Well, I agree with everything she says. As I grew up, there was a lot of boundaries as far as cell phones and technology and TV and time spent. The time spent on technology, and when we're with our family, we can't always be brain numb and always in our phone and always so caught up into the world and technology.
I wanted to mention that. I wanted y'all especially to mention that because I do admire your relationship. And so because, like Kayla, you and I mentioned earlier about the social media piece and just kind of us moving in this fast technology world, that like we're competing really against what's the latest happening and if you can tap into it and if you miss it. And so it actually is a consequence to some of our teens if they don't know the latest about what's going on, because now you've put this boundary in place that you can't have cell phones after a certain hour. You can't have it at dinner. So if some Snapchat just came through, now you missed the storyline. And so I wanted to mention that because I know that with this cycle that we're trying to break with what's happening with our parents and our teens and our moms and our dads and just our community, we honestly have to share with them the benefits to having this close relationship. And so part of it is being intentional about the process. And so you may not make everybody happy at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Kayla, do you remember, was this an easy thing for you? I know your parents, they kind of had the education with it and the understanding of it. But was it easy for you to kind of be like, oh, like I put the phones away. Now they're asking me to talk. They want to know about me. Were these things easy for you?
At first, no, it wasn't, because I would get really nervous. But now that I'm more comfortable with being open, I feel just as normal. I mean, it's nothing, I don't feel anything that's changed. I feel normal.
Yeah. And so, Maya, what do you remember? What do you and your husband, well, you can speak for him and yourself also, remember about like having to start these conversations that we deem as sensitive topics and how easy or difficult it was to even get it going?
In reference to the boundaries and what our expectations
Well,
were?
no, just kind of beginning to bridge this gap and being able to say, hey, I'm going to talk to my teens about things. I'm going to open up this relationship. So do you remember how easy it was or how difficult it was, or what was easy or what was difficult about it?
Right. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. My youngest is 10 and 11, but when they were younger, they were more basically receptive of what we said, what we said, and this is what it is. Now I have a 17-year-old. Even though we did the same exact thing with him, he has not always went to the left when we said to the left. He wanted to have his own identity. So it became difficult for us as parents. And I wouldn't even say difficult, but I would just say challenging. But we never took our hand off our child, meaning that we continue to pray. We continue to instill in him positive things. When he talks and tell me what he does, in return, tell him about the positive things in life and how he can be so much greater. So it's not easy. I don't want to paint a perfect picture because the world is not perfect and the things that are around us obviously is not perfect. However, I do like to be honest and transparent with our kids. And even if they go the opposite way, me and my husband always have a way of talking, praying, and just believing that they're going to take what we're saying for what it is and hopefully apply it, even if they make bad decisions. And I know you and I both as parents and life for us, some of the decisions that we made that may not even be that great have been one of our greatest gifts or stories that we have in our life because we learned a great lesson. So we have to keep that in mind too. So I think with us being humble and just enjoying the moment of being parents, in general, setting those boundaries, telling them what to expect, even during the most difficult times, gave us strength to keep pushing forward and being who we need to be for our children.
I agree. I couldn't have said it better. I agree. And I wanted some of our Source Nation to hear about it. Again, we are really, really putting forth the effort to make sure this cycle is broken. And so some of our teens really are. They're going to other teens for advice. They're Googling advice, and Google will bring up everything. And we want them to be comfortable. Yes, and we want them to feel comfortable. And so I'm so glad you said this wasn't easy. It was challenging, but we kept being persistence, because the main goal in mind is we don't want to lose our kids to the streets. And you and I talked about that last week about the boys and what's happening. So it really does. It has its benefits. It's uncomfortable, but I always tell my clients discomfort is not necessarily bad.
Right. Yes, I agree. And, it's a process. And, the only thing that I could say, or one of the things that I could say to parents that have kids that especially are in that teenage years, because that's when they start really truly getting their identity, start smelling themselves, for lack of better words, and, never to give up. The world may say, and, count your child out and say, well, he and she, or, your son and daughter is doing X, Y, and Z, and I don't know what's wrong with them. But see, I think what we have to learn to do, instead of talking about what they are doing, pray about what they're doing, talk to them about what they're doing. And if you're not going to be part of the solution, then you are part of the problem. So I look at it from the perspective of keep talking no matter what. Like, I'm not going to sit and talk about it. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to tell my child, these are the expectations, these are boundaries. You make these choices, these are the consequences. Do you want to be successful, 6 feet under, or in jail? So, which path do you want? And especially with my boys, I have to talk to them like that, even though my husband already beat me to the punchline. But I try to, I reinforce it because I want them to understand, look, life is not a fairy tale. Life doesn't always give you everything that you imagine or you expect to happen. You have to work for it. As my daughter had said earlier in her conversations, and I was kind of amazed because I don't realize how much she actually watches me and how she called herself a life coach and she's 13. But in her mind, Mama, whatever you are, I want to be what you are and even better. So she says, I want to, do all of these things. And I always tell my daughter, you can do all of these things, but nothing in life comes easy. And anything that you have to do a shortcut to get, or you want it instant, as far as the instant gratification, is one of the things, or one of the many things that you need to be careful and mindful about, because if it comes that easy and it comes that quick, some repercussion is coming on the back end. So do everything that you're supposed to do as ethically possible with everything that you do, putting everything in it that you have. And I always, with my children, with my boys, when it comes to communication, I think one of the biggest advice that I can give to parents is understanding your child, knowing that each child is different, and understanding how to reach your child. I couldn't reach Nigel, my oldest son, the way that I reach my daughter. She'll sit and listen. She'll talk. She'll give me her opinions. He's headstrong. No, Mama, you just don't understand. This is what it is. This is how it is. And so I have to try a different approach. So I think that is one of the biggest things with understanding your kids, knowing when to speak and when to say certain things, and kind of picking, I guess, for lack of better words, picking your battles, meaning that know when to speak to them so that you can reach them where they need to be reached at. Because trust me, each one of your children, whether you have 1 or 3 or more, they need their parents. They need their mother, they need their father. And even if that's not the case and it's a single parent home, they need who they have, which is you. And if that's all they have, then take advantage of the opportunity and be more than they can ever imagine. So I always say a prayer, Lord, allow me to be what you would have for me to be and more than they can imagine, meaning that I would be more than they can even think that they need in a mother when I'm parenting and when I'm talking to my sons and I'm telling them, the boundaries and the importance of, communication and bridging that gap between me and them in the world. Because sometimes when they get older, especially when you're dealing with boys, it's not easy. They listen to the rap music, or they listen to the various, I'm not saying rap music is a problem, but they listen to the music, they see the TV, and they see this life, and we know a lot of it is entertainment. But our boys, they don't see that. They look at it, well, they can do it and they can have it. That enticing feeling is what drives them. And at least that's my experience with my oldest son. So I have to talk to him. I have to continue to give him knowledge, because I don't want him to be blind. So it's very imperative, and I'm going to stop talking because I can talk all day, but it's very imperative that the young men that we have, our boys, our babies, our girls, that we use every opportunity that we can and just give them, pour into them as much as we possibly can. I'm not saying being overwhelmed. Don't overwhelm them with pouring, but, doing in increments, maybe at lunch, at dinner, over the weekend while you're out. I mean, whatever, just talk, have that conversation, that dialogue, because it's very important. And you'll be surprised how much they retain and they keep with them.
I'm glad that you gave those points. That is actually where I was going with the ending of it, of being able to give advice to our teens and our parents. So that was perfect, actually. And so, Kayla, what advice would you give the teens to help bridge the gap between their parents?
Some advice I will give teens to bridge the gap between their parents is to be mindful of your actions and decisions you make, because I think you should follow your parents' leadership and guidance. And if you don't have a parent involved in your life, find a mentor, someone that you can trust, and that can give you good advice, values, and morals.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So this has been really such a great conversation, and so Kayla, I'm so proud of you. I really am. If I can go back and speak to my 13-year-old self as a young lady, It would definitely be, I need for you to get another role model. I need for you to open your mouth and talk. The parents are okay. And so I'm so proud that, like, the world doesn't have all of our teens, and that we still have great mothers like yourself, Maya, who really care about the community. And then you didn't just stop with just your family, that you have a foundation, you have different things that you are actually trying to really stop a lot that's happening with our community. And I'm so thankful for people like y'all. I really am.
Thank you.
And so, like, as we wrap this up, Kayla, would you tell Source Nation just where they can find you, if you have any last words of encouragement for our teen listeners, and just any last things you would like to say?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to have social media. So if you want to find me, you can contact my mom, which is my manager. She's my momager, if you want to say that. And
Cute.
Kayla is a character. I promise you she is. But go ahead, Kayla.
And my words of advice is be you. Don't let anybody try to change you. And a few words of advice will not hurt. And if you take anything away from anything that me and my mom have said today, use a guidance, somebody that can help you guide yourself through life. And that's all I got to say.
So if you want to get in touch with Kayla, you can go to my website at www.mayaspellercullins.com, and that's MYASPELLER, Cullins, CULLINS.com, MayaSpellerCullins.com.
So great. So it was so great having you both on here, and I just wish you so much success. And I would definitely, as I keep this rotation going throughout the year, I can definitely see space for both of you to come back and to shine some more light on what's happening and to really break a lot of these cycles. And so, again, I thank you so much both for being on the series of Bridging the Gap between our parents and our teens.
Thank you, and thanks for having us. We enjoyed you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. The Source Nation, that was our special guest, Miss Kayla Cullins, and her mom, Miss Maya Cullins. And they talked a lot about bridging this gap between our parents and our teens. And so I just want to reiterate on some of the great points that Kayla made first. And so that was, it is really difficult to talk to your parents. It's not going to be an easy process. You've got a lot of things working against you, like your other peers or the fast pace of social media and trying to keep up with the latest things that are happening, and your peers telling you things that are not false. So I really hope that that's something you pulled from her. If you are a listener and that's young and you really want to find that relationship between your parents. And her mom also made a great point about boundaries have to be set. We do actually have to have some type of guidelines and be intentional and persistent with making sure this relationship happens. It's not going to be easy. So you heard it from both sides, the teen and the mother, that it's not easy. So Source Nation family, I want to encourage you to stay with it. I want to encourage you to be very, very intentional with making sure this process happens. We really have to reach our teens again. We really have to build that relationship. And as always, if there's something that you're struggling with as the parent, there's always counseling resources. There's always life coaches out there who will help you fight through those issues to make sure that you can actually work on yourself to have that better relationship. Don't ever let guilt run your life. And so I thank you so much for just tuning in, and I'll be continuing this series with another great guest next week on Bridging the Gap between our parents and our teens. And so, as always, Source Nation, you are welcome to reach out to me via email at jabryant1913@gmail.com, Twitter at Jaketra B, and my website is www.b3mentalperformances.com. So tune in next week on Family Mix Mondays.